Howdy, my name is Nonat, and the Grand Bazaar just came out last week for Pathfinder 2e. This is an awesome supplement full of different shops, information about their owners, I love you Tattletale, and the various items they can sell to adventuring parties. Honestly, I can and probably will do an entire video about why this is the single best supplement for GMs in Pathfinder, but that's not what we're talking about here today. No, because hidden away at the back of this book are the Absalom ads. This is an adorable little flavor segment that says they can send out training manuals for a few brand new archetypes. So today, that's exactly what we're going to talk about, the 3 brand new archetypes that came out with the Grand Bazaar, starting with the Captivator. Speaking of ads, this just in, RPG Superstar 2021, the longest running contest endorsed by Paizo, is now accepting entries for their monster designs. In case you didn't know, Roll for Combat is running the RPG Superstar contest. This is a chance for you to enter up to 3 unique monster designs, have them checked out and analyzed by professional game designers, and potentially win a share of cash prizes. Over 100 entries will be winning bronze, silver, gold, or platinum rank, or maybe even the grand prize of the entire contest. Higher ranks obviously leading to a larger cash prize, and the recognition of having both the medal on the page and your name on the page of the 2022 Battle Zoo Bestiary. Bestiary? Bestiary? I've been saying bestiary my whole life. Because there's beasts in it. Entry for the contest ends December 7th, so get yourselves working, get your designs in before it's too late, and remember, you can enter up to 3 to maximize your chances of winning. The only people who cannot enter are those who already have an existing hardcover credit in the tabletop RPG world. I'm sure that's not most of you, but to those of you who are professional game designers, sorry, you're gonna have to pass this one. For more information, check out rpgsuperstar.com or click the link in the description and the pinned comment below. Thank you so much to Roll for Combat for sponsoring this video. Y'all, don't sleep on this. I'm going to be entering the RPG Superstar contest with my team, and we're going to see if we can't get ourselves in that next year's book. So you do the same. Thank you to Roll for Combat for sponsoring this video. Back to the archetypes. The Captivator is an occult spellcaster, sort of like a bard, but much more focused on specifically enchantment and illusion. This means its options for spells are far more limited than other spellcasting archetypes, but it does get additional support for those types of spells. In order to take this dedication, you need at least 14 charisma and to be trained in diplomacy or deception. Upon taking the dedication, you can either become trained in the other skill you weren't trained in, say you're trained in diplomacy and you take the dedication, you can then become trained in deception. Or you can double down on the same skill and increase it to expert. You get 2 cantrips from the occult spell list, but like I said, they must be either enchantment or illusion. Sorry, no electric arc for this archetype. This is of course a charisma caster and doesn't need to use any material components, as it performs these spells with various somatic components almost as though through conversation. Bam. At level 4, basic Captivator spellcasting is your basic spellcasting benefit feat for a spellcasting archetype. However, the rules stay the same for the Captivator. They can only be enchantment or illusion spells, and this will be the same going forward. The Captivator cannot cast any spells that are not from the enchantment or illusion schools. At level 6, Captivating Intensity is where the Captivator finally gets rewarded for its limited selection of spells. This is the same as any other breadth feat for a spellcasting archetype, such as the Wizard. As you can see, usually you get this at level 8, and it gives you an additional spell slot for every spell 2 levels below your max. What Captivating Intensity does is the same, but at level 6. There's also an additional effect when you take a higher level feat, so we'll come back to that. So it's 9 a.m. the morning that this video is supposed to be going up, and I realized I misexplained the next feat so badly I had to completely re-record it. So let's talk about Counter Charm. Counter Charm is a slightly more powerful counter spell, similar to something that most other spellcasters can get. As a reaction, if an opponent casts any spell from the enchantment or illusion school, you can sacrifice one of your spells of the appropriate school and then attempt to counteract the spell being cast. This is interesting and hard to understand at first. It's bad in that this is a counterspell only for enchantment and illusion effects. However, it's good because it's a little more versatile than normal counterspell. If someone like a wizard or a sorcerer wants to counterspell, they need to have the exact same spell that is being cast available to them in order to counter it. If someone is casting Fireball, they need to sacrifice a Fireball spell. Counter Charm is a little more flexible. If an opponent starts to cast something like a Charm spell, you could sacrifice a Zone of Truth spell to counteract it because they are both enchantment. So long as you are sacrificing enchantment to counter enchantment or illusion to counter illusion, you can do that, giving it more restrictive spells that it can counter, but more varied, flexible ways to counter them. Pretty cool, pretty good, and a nice little twist on typical counterspell. Heightened Captivation is very confusing, but also one of the most important feats for the Captivator. Before we talk about it though, I need to clear something up. The Captivator does not get spell slots. If we look at basic Captivator spellcasting, there's a reason it is explained differently than basic spellcasting benefits. This is because the spells gained from this feat do not count for spell slots. Rather, each one becomes a once per day innate occult spell available to the characters. Why is this important? Well, Heightened Captivation, when taken at level 8, allows you to select one spell. For the rest of your character's life, that spell, rather than being cast at the level it was taken, will always be heightened to the highest possible Captivator spell you can cast. For example, let's say you took Charm at level 1 as your first level occult innate spell, and you take Heightened Captivation at level 8 and select Charm. Well, now you lose Charm at first level, but you gain Charm at third level, because at this moment, a third level spell is the highest spell you can cast. If you hit level 10 and you take the next spellcasting feat and gain a fourth level spell, that Charm will be automatically upgraded to fourth level, and so on every time you gain a higher level spell slot. So effectively, taking this feat removes a lower level spell and makes it scale to your highest level, giving you more spells of your highest level per day. This is incredibly confusing, and I hope I explained it well. Also, if you took Captivating Intensity at level 6 and then took Heightened Captivation, you gain an additional cast of that heightened spell. However, it is 2 levels lower than your highest level spell you can cast. So with the Charm example from before, if you're level 8 and you can cast Charm at 3rd level, well, you can now cast it a second time per day at 1st level. This also scales up as long as it's 2 levels lower than the highest level spell you can cast. Boy, this is confusing! Expert Captivator spellcasting is when the Captivator really gets to stretch ahead of other spellcasters. Normally, Expert spellcasting is a level 12 archetype feat and grants a 4th level spell. For the Captivator, it is a 10th level feat that grants a 4th level spell, 5th level spell at level 12, and 6th level spell at level 14. At this point, the Captivator is a full spell level ahead of every other spell casting archetype. Reactive Charm sounds really cool, but is not worth taking in my humble opinion. It is first off a level 10 feat, which means it's competing with expert spellcasting, but beyond that, it's also incredibly limiting. It is a once per day reaction if you are ever the target of a spell or attack. Basically, as a reaction when you are targeted, you can cast a first level spell using your reaction instead of on your turn. Sounds amazing, right? Being able to cast any 2 action or less spell as a reaction? That's huge! Except remember, it's only enchantment or illusion. Not only that, but it has to target the creature who targeted you. Not only that, but if you took Heightened Captivation back at level 8 and you chose your first level spell, well, guess what? You don't have a first level spell anymore. Reactive Charm only works for first level spells, and if you heightened it automatically, it's gone. You don't have a first level spell slot at level 10 if you took Heightened Captivation on your first level spell. Also, I don't remember, and I haven't done all the research, but on stream we looked into first level occult, enchantment, and illusion spells, and I think there's like 3. One of which is Soothe, which healing as a reaction sounds cool, but remember that it's only on the subject who's attacking you. The only big cool combo that came out of this that my chat thought of is if somebody targets you with a healing spell, as a reaction, you can target them back with a first level Soothe spell, which remember is only 1d10 plus 4. Effortless Captivation would be really cool if it was. This is your standard free action, sustain a spell for free. Don't get me wrong, this is great. If you need to sustain an illusion, it no longer costs an action on your turn. You can just do that for free. The problem with this is it doesn't stack with other free action sustain spells. So if you're something like a wizard or a sorcerer who's thinking, big brain, I take this, I take the automatic free sustain from my class, that's 2 free sustains per turn. Let me crush your dreams right now. My chat also informed me on the stream that you cannot use more than 1 free action on the same trigger, and all of those feats have the same trigger of your turn begins. So unfortunately, no. If your class already offers you a feat that lets you sustain a spell for a free action, there is no purpose to taking both. This is, however, great on something like a fighter or just a non-spellcasting class who has this archetype. Don't get me wrong, that's fantastic. Master Captivator spellcasting is beautiful. First off, you become a master with your spell attack rolls, which off of an archetype is amazing. This shows up 2 levels before the normal archetype master spellcasting feats, so you're becoming a master spellcaster at level 16, which I think is only 1 level later than some non-focused spellcasters. On top of that, it does not cap at an 8th level spell. Upon hitting level 20, the Captivator gains a 9th level spell. Again, has to be enchantment or illusion, but that's still fantastic. And don't forget, if you took Heightened Captivation way back at level 8, that old little weak level 1 charm spell is now being cast at 9th level, so this archetype is giving you 2 9th level spells per day. That is phenomenal. And because it's so good, the level 18 capstone for the Captivator is honestly not that impressive, but it is still pretty good. For a single action meta magic once per day, you can spend this action and then cast an enchantment or illusion spell from this archetype. If it fails to affect anything, you can cast it again on the following turn for free. Again, this effectively giving you the potential for another spell slot is huge. This means you can look again, cast a 9th level single target spell. If it fails, cast it again on the next turn, effectively giving you 3 9th level spell slots from an archetype. It's great, but the fact that you have to use it before you cast the spell, and then it has to be used again right on the next turn is a little unfortunate. This is also pretty much useless for area of effect spells or spells with even a normal saving throw success effect. In order for Look Again to work, the target must be unaffected by your spells. For example, if you cast Charm, if they normal succeed, there is an effect. The Spell Trickster is a fascinating, completely new type of archetype that I kinda hope to see more of in the future. Put simply, the Spell Trickster changes the effects of spells. Let's talk about this. When you take the dedication, first off, you must be able to cast spells and be trained in one of the 4 magical skills. But when you take the dedication, you immediately get 2 of the level 4 feats from this archetype for free. You ignore the level prerequisite, and you must be able to cast the appropriate spell, but you can just take them right away and you get them at level 2. All of these feats alter the effects of the spell, and the best part is that they're not permanent alterations. Whenever you take a feat that augments one of your spells, you get to choose every time you cast it whether to cast the normal version or the augmented version. So this gives you so many more options because yes, Paizo, spellcasters needed more options. The first feat available to the Spell Trickster is the Agile Hand, which grants the Mage Hand spell an alternate use. You can now use Mage Hand on a set of Thieves' tools and make a thievery check to disable a trap or pick a lock from up to 20 feet away. The only downside is you take a -2 penalty to the check. That's it. Should the thievery check crit fail, however, for some reason, you can't use this spell again for 24 hours. Not really sure why that is. Your Thieves' tools would probably break anyway because it was a crit failed thievery check, but I don't know why that exists. That's a weird line. Barrier Shield is an augment for the Shield cantrip. When you cast Shield in this way, you do still get the bonus to armor class from casting it, however, you cannot shield block with the cantrip. Instead, you create a force field in front of you that you can actually take cover behind by spending an additional action, granting you +2 more armor class against ranged attacks. So if you're shield blocking specifically against someone with a crossbow, cast Barrier Shield, take cover, and you just gave yourself +3 armor class at level 4. Forceful Push is another Mage Hand augmentation, and this allows you to make a shove action against one creature within Mage Hand's reach. And you don't have to roll athletics. You make a spell attack roll instead. You attack their Fortitude DC, unfortunately, but if you succeed, you shove them 5 feet. If you crit succeed, you shove them 10 feet. Really good augmentation. Shining Arms is a pretty cool, but not super powerful augment for the Light spell. You can now cast light on a weapon, and this only lasts for 1 minute instead of 1 day. However, if the wielder of that weapon gets a critical hit on a target, you can dismiss the light spell as a reaction and dazzle the target who was hit for 1 round. This is a lot of effort to put in just for the dazzled condition. You need a critical hit within 1 minute and spend your reaction to dazzle them, but at least there's no saving throw. If you do it this way, you can't do it again for only 10 minutes, so really like once per encounter, you could potentially get a free dazzle. If you can put this on before the encounter starts, even better. GMs, I'm sorry for the existence of Summon Ensemble. This augments the Summon Instrument cantrip, and instead of summoning a single instrument you can play, you summon a bunch of instruments floating around you and playing together as a band. Once per turn, when you sustain the spell, you pick a creature within 30 feet of you that makes a will save against your spell DC, and if they fail, they are flat-footed for 1 round. Rogues, you're welcome. GMs, I'm sorry for how often this is going to happen in roleplay. You can also only target a creature once per 24 hours with the effects of Summon Ensemble. Tracing Sigil is a super cool augment for the Sigil spell. When you put your sigil on somebody, they leave a magical trail that can be followed instead of using survival with the appropriate magical tradition. If you cast this as an occult spell, then you can roll occultism to track your target rather than survival. This is phenomenal. It still only works in that they need to be leaving a trail that can be followed. If they teleport somewhere, you can't exactly track that. But if they're walking through the woods, you can follow the trail left by your sigil. Super cool. Also, you can only have 1 creature marked in this way. If you cast it again, it disappears. Wild Lights is a solid upgrade to Dancing Lights as an augmentation. Rather than having it be a sustained spell, Wild Lights gives your Dancing Lights a 1-minute duration. No longer do you need to waste an action to keep it active. By default, it hovers over your head, giving the lights of Dancing Lights, but for 1 action, you can direct it to move up to 30 feet in any direction as it flies around. If it ever moves more than 120 feet away from you, it does wink out of existence. Animate Net, at level 6 now, alters the Animate Rope spell. Rather than targeting a rope, you can animate a net to attack 1 creature within 20 feet of the net. That is important, of the net, not of the caster. You make a spell attack roll against their reflex DC, and on a success, you give them a -10-foot speed penalty and make them flat-footed for the duration of the spell. If you crit succeed, they are also immobilized until they escape, the escape DC being your spell DC, of course. What's really cool about this is even once the spell ends, they're still wrapped in a net. and need to escape from a net's normal effects. And that escape DC does drop to the normal DC, which is typically 16. This is cool though. If if the spell wears off, they still have a net on their face, and that's phenomenal. Confounding Image is an awesome augment to Mirror Image. When you cast Mirror Image, you now summon an illusory duplicate of yourself within 30 feet. Not only does this look just like you, but your allies can flank with your mirror image. Its AC and saving throws are determined by your spell DC, which is really cool, and otherwise it can't do anything else. But especially if you're fighting low intelligence enemies, this could be a fantastic way to distract them, get their attention, and just give your rogue someone to flank with. I love this. Disc Rider is exactly what it sounds like. It is an augment for floating disc, and now the duration of the disc lasts for up to 10 minutes, and you can ride it. It can hold you plus your maximum amount of bulk, and it can glide over liquid as long as it ends its 30-foot movement on solid ground. For a single action, you order the disc to move up to 30 feet. Keep in mind though, if your normal speed is less than 30, its movement speed sadly changes to yours. I'm sorry to dwarven disc riders. But yeah, this is the ultimate, I'm a lazy spellcaster and I don't want to walk. Floating disc, sit down, we ride. Sadly, nobody else can ride it, even if they're like sitting on your shoulders. If anybody else attempts to ride the disc, it dispels. Drenching Mist is an awesome upgrade to Obscuring Mist. When you cast it, all non-magical fires in the area are put out, and you can make a counteract check against a single magical fire effect. How cool is that? Oh, my entire party is burning to death? Mist! It's like taking a spray bottle and spraying them down, it's great. Apparently, Paizo loves Obscuring Mist because it got another augmentation, Obscured Terrain. Now, all of the squares within your Obscuring Mist are difficult terrain to creatures that cannot see through the mist, which is most creatures. Keep in mind, that's also your allies. Uneasy Rest is both flavorful and kinda useful. It augments the sleep spell, and any creature that fails or crit fails its save against the sleep spell upon waking up is frightened 1. That's awesome. Volatile Grease is so much fun. You augment, of course, the Grease spell to be a single target spell instead of an area. You coat a target's body in grease and they attempt a reflex save. If they crit succeed, nothing happens. If they normal succeed, they are splattered with grease and have weakness 2 to fire until the end of your next turn. If they fail, it lasts for 1 minute. If you combine Volatile Grease with something like a crit-produced flame to get persistent fire damage, that's gonna burn. The weakness does scale, but it's very, very slow. Only +1 weakness every 2 spell levels. Beacon Mark basically turns Sigil into free weak scrying. If a creature or object has your sigil on it, and it is within 1 mile of you, you can spend a single action to focus and discern its location and direction. Now, if the target is a creature or the creature is holding an object you have put a sigil on, it can make a will save to try to stop you from scrying on it. But remember, this is still a cantrip! That's amazing! Sigil takes a while to wipe off, so if they don't know it's there, or even if they do and you're trying to track them down, holy cow! Sure, a distance of 1 mile isn't, like, amazing, but it's still really good if someone's in the city. A city's not gonna be that much more than a city's not gonna be much more than a mile long, so if you can put Sigil on somebody and have Beacon Mark, Larcenous Hand is a lot of words, but it lets your mage hand pickpocket. You do need to have the agile hand feat and the pickpocket skill feat, but it lets you roll thievery to pick someone's pocket with your mage hand. It also allows you to take an object from someone who is willing. If someone holds out a potion, your mage hand can take it and bring it back to you, all within the single action casting of mage hand. Okay, mage hand is technically 2 actions, but you know what I mean. Oh, would you look at that? 2 levels after Volatile Grease, we have Lingering Flames, which reduces the base damage of Fireball, but causes it to inflict 2 persistent fire damage on anybody who fails their save. Also, this persistent fire damage goes up every spell level. This is disgusting. Or, if you just want more fire, Scattered Fire, rather than shooting one 20-foot burst of Fireball, you get to shoot 2 10-foot bursts of Fireball. Oh no, there's 3 people over there and 3 people over there? I got this. Whoosh! Siphoning Touch is a cool augment to Vampiric Touch. Rather than granting yourself temporary hit points, you can give them to one ally within 30 feet and they last a minute. Very cool. Do you like Fireball? Because I think Paizo likes Fireball. Smoldering Explosion adds a smoke cloud effect to Fireball after casting it. For 1 round, the area of the Fireball also has the effects of Obscuring Mist. Steel Vitality is interesting and not exactly what I would think of when I hear the name Steel Vitality, but it's another augment for Vampiric Touch. If you use the spell, instead of gaining temporary hit points, you can attempt to counteract the clumsy or enfeebled condition on yourself. I don't know how important this is, because if you're a spellcaster, clumsy and enfeebled isn't crazy bad. I mean, clumsy lowers your armor class, so I guess that's good, but I don't know, this one's okay. You know, I'm not fully understanding this one, and I'm too lazy to look things up because I have a lot more stuff to cover here, so I'm going to leave this to you in the comments. What the heck does this mean? Instead of your wall of fire being a 5-foot thick, 10-foot radius ring of flame, I get that, you can form the wall into a 10-foot radius hemisphere of fire? So what, is it like a half wall? Or is it like a dome? Is it like a dome of fire? Like it goes 10 foot up, like on like a half a sphere? I don't know. Explain this to me, please. Toppling Tentacles is pretty huge. Rather than the normal effect, Tentacles attempt to trip every creature in the area. You make spell attack rolls against every creature's reflex DC, and on a success, not only do you deal 3d6 bludgeoning, but you also trip anybody you succeed against. And if something ends their turn in the area, they attempt to be tripped again and take 1d6 bludgeoning damage. This is so fantastic. Also, it's difficult terrain. That's just such a flat upgrade. Did you want another Fireball augment? Because we've got another Fireball augment. When you cast Fireball as at least a 6th level spell, you reduce the damage all the way to 6d6, but Fireball leaves behind a cloud of toxic smoke now, with the same effects as Stinking Cloud. And finally, Directed Poison, which makes Cloud Kill even more freaking deadly. When you cast Cloud Kill, it now has a duration of 1 minute and does not move. However, once per round when you sustain the spell, you can move the entire cloud 10 feet in any direction. And Cloud Kill does damage when a creature starts their turn in the cloud. So someone steps just barely out of it, move it back over them and let their turn start. Then you just laugh. And finally, let's talk about the Wrestler. There's not much to explain here. You are a professional wrestler, show and all. The dedication is pretty good. You get bumped up to Expert Athletics, you no longer take a penalty to make lethal unarmed strikes, you get the Titan Wrestler skill feat, and a +2 to your Fortitude DC to avoid being grappled or swallowed whole. That's a lot of benefits from a level 2 dedication. Now, the Wrestler is interesting in that most of their feats are new abilities, not just passive bonuses, but actual actions and reactions that are all based around grappling. For example, Disengaging Twist. If you would ever be grabbed or restrained, you can spend your reaction to not only instantly attempt to escape, but gain a +2 as well. You're already an expert in athletics. I assume you have a 16 or 18 strength. You're level 4 and getting a +2? That's huge! Elbow Breaker is great. For a single action, if you have a creature grabbed, you can not only strike them as usual, but depending on if your strike hits or crits, you also get the effects of the disarm action. This is 2 actions in 1. The only hard part is you need to have them grabbed. So, I mean, you're a wrestler, you're grabbing things. this is huge. If you crit succeed, you disarm them. If you normal succeed, you give them the penalty to using the item unless they reaffirm their grip. It's great. Suplex is great, and you can even use it on a train. For a single action, if you have a creature grabbed or restrained, you can make a melee strike against them. And if you critically hit with that melee strike, they take an additional 2d6 bludgeoning damage and are knocked prone. Even a normal successful attack with this still knocks them prone. The worst case scenario, however, is even if the attack fails, you do release your target. So a failed suplex is actively bad for you. Clinch Strike is amazing. As a reaction, if someone should escape your grab, you can attack of opportunity with an unarmed strike. Simple as that. Great. Running Tackle. 2 actions for 3 actions. You get to stride, attack, and shove all at the same time. My only problem with this is that the shove isn't at the same bonus as the attack, so the shove is going to be at -5. Strangle is great. For a single action, you make a melee strike against a creature you have grabbed or restrained, and as long as you hit, they become strangled. This requires them to make a DC 10 or higher flat check in order to use any kind of speech or vocal ability, such as casting a spell with verbal components. This stacks with the grabbed flat check for attempting to manipulate while restrained. So they would not only need to pass the DC 10 check to talk, which I can't apparently. They would not only need to pass the DC 10 check to talk, but also the DC 5 check from being grabbed to do the manipulate action, so this just shuts down spellcasters. Submission Hold. For a single action, you can attempt to grapple a creature you currently have grabbed. Should you succeed, the target is enfeebled 1 until the end of its next turn. Should you crit succeed, it is enfeebled 2 until the end of its next turn, and then enfeebled 1 for a minute. This just makes it even harder to get away from you, albeit this is not super useful against dexterity-based characters who can attempt to roll acrobatics to escape. Aerial Pile Driver. Do I even need to say how cool this is? For 2 actions, you take a creature you have grabbed. You jump up into the air, flip over, and bash both of you into the ground. Your melee strike that you make against this creature deals 1d6 additional damage per damage dice. So if you just have a normal striking weapon, that's 2d6 additional damage. And because this makes the attack deal more damage, yes, that is doubled on a crit. Should you succeed and hit your target, they land prone. Should you fail, they don't land prone and they're no longer grabbed. And should you crit fail, you let go of them and you fall prone and you make a fool of yourself in front of the entire WWE. Spinebreaker. It is the exact same as Submission Hold, except it makes them clumsy instead of enfeebled. Taking both of these feats is not a bad idea because it means you can judge who you're grappling and then reduce the skill they'll try to use to escape. Oh, you're grappling a slippery thief? Spinebreaker, make them clumsy. Oh, you're grappling a troll? Use Submission Hold and weaken their physical athletics to escape from you. Just great options to keep things restrained. Inescapable Grasp makes you such an effective grappler that even a spellcaster attempting to cast or use any kind of teleportation effect has a 75% chance of failing. If they attempt to use a teleport effect to get out of your grasp, they need to make a flat DC 15 check just for it to work, otherwise it fails. Even if something is cast on them like Freedom of Movement, which usually lets you just escape for free, they still need to make a DC 15 check to escape, and if they fail, nothing happens. I love it. And finally, Formlock. You squeeze a werewolf back to a person. And those are the 3 new archetypes released in Pathfinder 2e's The Grand Bazaar book. Sure, this book is mostly a magic item, NPC, and building compendium, but boy are these amazing archetypes, especially the Spell Trickster. Augmenting existing spells is something I am always a fan of, and I love seeing that implemented into Pathfinder 2e. So, that is going to be it for me. I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons for supporting me in everything I do. If you would like to join them, there is a link in the description. Also, big shout out to Roll for Combat for sponsoring the channel. Be sure to check out their RPG Superstar 2021 competition, both in the description and the pinned comment below. You only got until December 7th to enter, so get those designs rolling. That is it for me, y'all. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones.